What's going on, everyone? My name's Brandon. This is the Superkick. I hope you're having a great day, and today is Sunday, July 24th, and it's time for the weekly recap, alright? Some big stuff happened this week. Death Before Dishonor happened this week. Jericho versus Eddie Kingston in a very bloody match happened this week. What else happened this week? The biggest story in wrestling in maybe years. Vince McMahon has retired, finally. To be honest with you, I never thought I'd see the day. I thought he would die before he retired. But here we are, resigned on Friday. Big implications of that I will be talking about. A little bit in the SmackDown recap, but the last, probably 20 minutes or so of the show, because I really want to talk about Vince and give my opinions on this, because I think I've got some interesting opinions on it. And I hope you agree with them. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. But weekly recap, Sunday, July 24th, recapping the week from Monday, July 18th till now, was kind of shaping up to be not the biggest week in wrestling, but definitely got spiced up with the Vince stuff. So, starting off, Titus O'Neil opened the show. Kind of weird. Titus O'Neil opened the show, and everybody's favorite global WWE ambassador opened and was did a big rah-rah speech to the crowd. Kind of weird, especially looking back at that in hindsight, with Vince McMahon announcing his retirement on Friday. A little bit odd, but, hey, is what it is. And then after that, Bianca Belair retained her women's title against Carmella. And that was an alright match. Shout out to Carmella. She's been in the company for a while. She's been steadily improving over the years, and I definitely think she has a shot in this Raw women's division or whatever women's division she happens to be a part of. It doesn't help or doesn't hurt that her husband is on commentary, gassing her up every chance he gets. She's gorgeous. She's talented in the ring, but yeah. And Bianca Belair has an opponent for SummerSlam, that being Becky Lynch. Last year at SummerSlam, the two faced off, and Bianca Belair lost pretty quickly. That was Becky Lynch's return to the company after maternity leave, and she came back and asserted her dominance, and beat Bianca Belair, and then Bianca Belair got her revenge at WrestleMania this past year, beat Becky Lynch, and now they're doing it again. I think that makes the most sense. I think these are probably the most popular women. Them and Ronda Rousey are the most popular women in the division right now, and that'll be interesting. I think they're going to be getting more than, 21 seconds last year at SummerSlam? I think they'll be getting more than that at this year's show. Okay, so I am not a journalist, right? I'm a guy that talks about professional wrestling right now. But there's a rumor, and I don't want to be... I was saying this earlier when I recorded this earlier. I am really trying to be careful about copyright and libel. I'm trying to not say too much. So I'm not reporting this. Somebody else reported this. The rumor and innuendo, to steal something from Conrad Thompson and Bruce Pritchard, is that Kevin Dunn did not want to push Becky Lynch because she was not attractive enough, which I think, if true, is absolutely ridiculous. Becky Lynch is gorgeous. She's one of the most attractive women on the roster, most talented women on the roster too. So I don't think there's a bad looking woman in wrestling right now, and I definitely don't think that's a reason to not push a female wrestler, especially because, like I said, they are all gorgeous. But that's the rumor. That's so interesting if that's true, because that's the Kevin Dunn of all people saying that. Didn't JR say something about Awesome Kong back in Tough Enough days? These guys, they are talent evaluators, but I think that's crazy if that's true. Speaking of Becky Lynch, her husband, Seth Rollins, is a mainstay on Raw. Main event player, should be in the main event even more than he is right now, because he's just kind of toiling around in the mid-card, doing his thing with good old Ezekiel, who doesn't love Ezekiel, right? But, he's doing his thing. I like Ezekiel a lot. I think that the former Elias is a guy that I think has a good future in the company, and it's fine if that's just as a mid-card act. I'm going to talk about Death Before Dishonor a little bit later, and Jonathan Gresham, because I think that guy has a place at the mid-card. There's nothing wrong with being a career mid-carder. There's nothing wrong with being a honky-tonk man, or a Santino Morello, or I'm trying to think of a Hurricane. There's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. It's fine to be a Intercontinental Champion, U.S. Champion for your career. WWE needs wrestlers like that, because not everybody's going to be a main event wrestler, and I think we know that. Show closed with Miz TV. I've said this last week, and I really am going to double down on this. Why is Logan Paul a babyface? People don't like Logan Paul, and I know I said the thing about me trying to be careful about libel. People don't like Logan Paul, though. People don't really like The Miz either, but I would say more of the wrestling fans like The Miz than Logan Paul. But as far as Logan Paul being a babyface, I mean, I really, really hope that his demographic loves this, and I hope that his demographic watches SummerSlam, because if not, I think this is a colossal waste. This does not appeal to the casual wrestler, does it appeal to the casual wrestling fan? I don't think so. I know it definitely doesn't appeal to the diehard wrestling fan like myself. I mean, we had to get used to The Miz. The Miz proved himself to us. Has Logan Paul done that? I mean, he wrestled at WrestleMania, and we said, hey, Logan Paul looked good. For a celebrity, he looked pretty good. But then he signs a contract, and he wants to be a babyface, and I'm assuming probably has a little bit of creative control over what he does and does not do. But Logan Paul, if you're watching this, which I know for a fact that you are not, dude, just realize that people don't like you. And here's the thing, when people don't like you naturally, you make a great heel at wrestling. It translates pretty easy, believe it or not. And I think Logan Paul could probably make more money if he does that. But, I mean, if he wants to be a babyface, I hope his audience likes it, and I hope his audience comes in droves, because if not, what a waste. Let's move on to NXT, though. I think the most interesting thing in NXT, and one of the most interesting things in wrestling, is the elimination of the women's tag team division. That's what it appears, right? I mean, Cora Jade threw out the NXT women's tag team titles, her title after she attacked Roxanne Perez. I think that's so interesting that, yeah, she just tossed it, and she's doing her thing. Cora Jade, she's being the bad girl of NXT right now. I think it's super interesting, and I'm gonna share an opinion, and I really hope you don't jump down my throat and and hate me for this opinion. But I don't disagree with WWE getting rid of their women's tag team division. I don't think that Sasha Banks and Naomi leaving is the worst thing for that, because I don't think that they have a solid enough division right now. I think that if they were to take away the titles, rebuild that, legitimately have the need for titles, I think that would be great, because right now there is no legitimate need for titles. Kind of is what it is, though. So I think that they should remove that. If they do, I'm sure people will be upset. But just from a standpoint of sensibility, I think that makes the most sense, right? So next thing, Joe Gacy. I like Joe Gacy. He's getting more members for his Schism group. Pretty creepy, cult leader guy. I think he's interesting. I'd like to see him up on Raw as part of the Judgment Day. I think he could be a really good mouthpiece for that group, as opposed to what he's doing right now. I think he is a guy that has been compared to kind of like the new Bray Wyatt. And I like that comparison, and I agree with that comparison, and it makes people think that Bray Wyatt will come back, and maybe he will. But I don't think there's a need for Bray Wyatt when you have Joe Gacy there. I think Joe Gacy is a guy that, he can replace, pretty easily replace Bray Wyatt. I like Bray Wyatt a lot, but as far as, how creepy he is, he can go in the ring. He's a lot cheaper than Bray Wyatt, so from a dollar and cent standpoint, Joe Gacy makes so much more sense for the company than Bray Wyatt. You can get similar, it's like, a running back. You can get similar production out of Joe Gacy than you can, than Bray Wyatt. And from what I understand, he was a bit of a headache. Rumored innuendo, though. I don't know anything. Next thing, JD McDonough and Braun Breaker had a, standoff or whatever, had a thing going on. I think it's interesting that Braun Breaker is facing this guy, the former Jordan Devlin. I think as many guys that Braun Breaker can mix it up with possible is good for him. Braun Breaker is a guy that is the future of the company. I think there's 3 real guys that you can eye out and say, hey, this is the future of the company. That being Braun Breaker, Theory, and then a guy that isn't even on television right now, but has to be training for wrestling. He better be at least. Gable Steveson, I think, is definitely a future big-time main event player in wrestling. All three of those guys. So Braun Breaker getting to mix it up with JD McDonough, I think, is all right now. I mean, McDonough obviously won't win the title. I think when it is time for Braun Breaker to come up to the main roster, I think him dropping it to Solo Sikoa, another multi-generational star that they're trying to push, would be the right move. And then Braun Breaker comes up and he challenges for the U.S. title. But until then, keep mixing it up with guys like JD McDonough and whoever else they're going to have face him. Next thing, Zoe Stark is the number one contender for Mandy Rose's NXT Women's Championship. She won the 20-woman Battle Royal. Cora Jade, kind of thought she pulled a sneaky move and was going to win it, but Zoe Stark, she put a stop to that. She put the kibosh on it, ended up winning, and she will be taking on Mandy Rose in the future. That'll be kind of interesting. I like Mandy Rose. She said that she was going to try and get back on Raw, which, obviously, she's not going to be in NXT forever. But she's, Zoe Stark and Mandy Rose will be interesting. It'll be good. But yeah, new number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. And the next thing we move on to is AEW Dynamite. Brody King and Darby Allin opened the show in a really good, hard-hitting match. Brody King is awesome. He's super believable. Darby Allin is believable, not through his size, but through his ability and his believability. There's just something about him that's more believable than a guy like Evan Bourne or Matt Sydal, who's similar in stature. He's got a cool look too. He's with Sting. Obviously we know the deal with Darby Allin, but they had a good match. And Miro's kind of teasing as the next member of the House of Black, which I think would be super interesting. I like Miro a lot. I think he's a guy that they are very much underutilizing right now. He was the former TNT champion, and I think that he is a guy who has main event potential. He showed that he has main event potential. People get behind him. People like Miro, and if he's in the House of Black, hey, at least it's something, right? I think that would be a pretty good fit, and then, eventually the split, where you have the split from him. Maybe, they rein in Miro, and then eventually, you can't keep him caged up any longer, and he does his own thing. But I think for the time being, not a bad fit. Let's see here. The monster push for... Oh, yeah, I'm looking at my notes right now. The monster push for Luchasaurus appears to be kind of stopped. Monster heel push, at least. Because Jungle Boy came back, confronted Christian, and then Jungle Boy kind of sided with... Luchasaurus kind of sided with his buddy Jungle Boy. We kind of thought that Luchasaurus might be a wrestler who is kind of like a guy named Kane, who, could be a guy like Kane, but siding with Jungle Boy and not with the heel Christian. Very interesting. I think Jungle Boy has a shelf life, and I think that shelf life is coming up soon. Or not Jungle Boy, sorry, I keep confusing these guys. Luchasaurus has a shelf life. I think Jungle Boy's going to be fine. But I would like for him to change his name from Jungle Boy to just Jungle Boy Jack Perry. I think that would be awesome. Sorry, I'm kind of getting a little bit repetitive because I did this podcast for like half an hour and then I was not happy with it at all because the audio quality was trash, and I hope that it isn't trash on this one either because I can hear my AC right now. But, yeah, I think, Luchasaurus is a guy who we kind of thought was going to be like the big monster heel, siding with Jungle Boy. I think that he should probably switch up his character a little bit. They should probably switch up his character, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to do that. I think a name change should be in order. I think Luchasaurus is a stupid name. I've said that for a while now. I think Luchasaurus is a pretty dumb name. But I like the guy. I think that if they change up his name, maybe to another dinosaur. This is a video that's going to come out later in the week. I'm going to rename Luchasaurus. I want to know what you think that he should be called, but I'm going to rename him to something. Something prehistoric, probably something like 75 million years old. Main event though, Chris Jericho beat Eddie Kingston in a very bloody I can't remember the name of it, but barbed wire match. Jericho Appreciation Society minus Sammy Guevara hung above the ring in the shark cage. Man, these guys look kind of ridiculous sometimes. I like the Jericho Appreciation Society, though. I think it's a pretty good mid-card act, or mid-card to main event, act with, they've got their roles in there. But, what happened? Anna Jay came out and she turned heel. She sided with her buddy Ty Conti and, helped Chris Jericho out, and Sammy Guevara returned. I'm like, why is Sammy Guevara not out here hanging above the ring? He was out, he made his return, though, helped Chris Jericho out. Big brawl between, Eddie Kingston, Chris Jericho, and Eddie Kingston's guys coming out. Ruby Riott was out there, Ruby Soho was out there, and I think it's interesting, man. I would like to see her challenge for a title, but a lot of big players in this match, and Jericho shockingly beat Eddie Kingston. I was convinced that Eddie Kingston was going to win and then be on to greener pastures. Not to say that he won't be on to greener pastures after this, but Jericho got the win, man. The Wizard got the W over Eddie Kingston, and to say I'm shocked is an understatement. But we're gonna move on to SmackDown. And some big news dropped earlier in the day, right? On SmackDown. A little bit earlier before SmackDown. And that big news was that Vince McMahon is retiring. Vince announced it himself on his Twitter. I couldn't believe it. I'm going to talk about this in a bit. But you want to talk about shocked? I was at work and I look at this. I look at my phone and I see Vince McMahon. I'm like, what? I thought that he was going to be there for until he died. I really did think that. But not the case. He retired. Stephanie McMahon going to take over, but it popped a rating because people wanted to tune in. But to tell you the truth, it was a pretty boring show. Not that much happened. They didn't really do that much to build towards SummerSlam, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, like a week, right? Is it not next weekend? So they didn't do anything to really build towards that. That kind of ticked me off a little bit. The big rumor was, and I talked about this, the big rumor was that Brock Lesnar was gone from the show. That he left the show. He pretty much said, hey, if Vince is gone, then so am I. And he left. And we were all like, oh my god, I got a huge smile on my face. Because I'm like, this is crazy. Vince is gone. Brock's gone. Oh my god, this is what people like me love. What wrestling fans love. The behind the scenes stuff, we love. And it turns out that Brock Lesnar did show up. And he attacked Austin Theory at the end of the show. And was not a big fan of that. Why are you I hate when Brock buries guys. Why do you get Brock to bury the young guys so much? That's why they have such a problem building main event stars. Is because they keep getting buried by Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Not a fan of that, but it might as well have just not been in the show, to be honest with you. That would have been interesting if Brock didn't show up, but like he was on good terms with them. That would have been interesting, but I guess you gotta kind of save face and you gotta show, hey, like we did advertise Brock and here he is. But I thought it was a pretty pointless appearance from Brock. But huge day in wrestling from the Vince stuff and the Brock stuff. Absolutely huge. And that led us into the weekend. Last night, Death Before Dishonor took place, and Claudio Castagnoli is your new ROH World Champion. He beat Jonathan Gresham in the opener, and Jonathan Gresham is reportedly very upset. He has reportedly requested his release from ROH and AEW, which I think really sucks. I think this guy's a valuable asset to the company. But here's the thing. I don't think Jonathan Gresham is a main event star. I think he's a really good mid-card star, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I get that he might want to be, and maybe down the line there is something where he gets a run with the world title. But for now, there's nothing wrong with being a mid-card, the star of the mid-card, just like Ezekiel on Raw. Not everybody needs to become world champion. Want to become world champion, have the desire to become world champion, but be okay with landing in the mid-card and putting out great matches. And, maybe make it your goal to have the greatest match on the card. Be the guy that everybody talks about. They may go there for the main event, but at the end of the show, they're the one that they're talking about. And maybe they buy a t-shirt or something because, hey, this guy put on an awesome match. But not everybody needs to be a main event star, and Jonathan Gresham, I really hope that he realizes that, because I guess he had it out with Tony Khan. Tony Khan has it out with a lot of these guys, between MJF and Jonathan Gresham. I'm sure they'll patch it up, though. But like I said, not the worst thing to be part of the mid-card. I'm not recapping Rampage because I really don't think there's a need to. If I was AEW, I would just title that AEW/ROH presents Rampage, and it would be ROH Rampage, and it would be all ROH matches, but you would have like Claudio would be there, and Brian would be there maybe. I would just rebrand that. They got to start building towards these shows because you can't just have a show that's, hey, this is going to be the greatest pro wrestling show of the year. You can only have that so many times. So I think having a weekly build to that, I mean, I said even maybe Dark and Elevation, that's where you focus Ring of Honor. I mean, either or, I think they need to focus, put the focus on Ring of Honor more and have a place to build these storylines, because you got to build AEW storylines on AEW Dynamite. You just have to. And preferably on Rampage. But if they do decide to have ROH, have Rampage be ROH's show, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Samoa Joe beat Jay Lethal to retain the ROH TV title. It'll be interesting to see what's next for Joe. Like I said, I mean, it gets kind of messy. I want a show where we can just focus on these guys. But yeah, Samoa Joe beat Jay Lethal. Pretty good match. Wheeler Yuta retained his pure title against Daniel Garcia. I like Wheeler Yuta. I really like that they're building towards Wheeler Yuta and becoming like a potential main event star. One thing that I think you have to commend them on is how they're building up Wheeler Yuta with the Blackpool Combat Club and William Regal. People are recognizing this guy as being, one of the future stars of the company, and you might not have thought that a year or two ago, but here we are. They're doing a super good job with Wheeler Yuta. I'd love to see Daniel Garcia get more of a push. He's a Buffalo guy. I'm, from the vicinity of there. I'd love to see Dan Garcia get a big push, but for now, Wheeler Yuta is the guy they're building, and I think they're doing a great job of it. Main event. FTR beat the Briscoes. Briscoes who will not appear. Maybe the Briscoes won't be appearing on AEW TV. That's what YouTube. I think a weekly YouTube. They're doing Dark and Elevation anyway. Would not be the worst idea. But FTR beat the Briscoes. Briscoes got the first fall, and FTR got the next two. And really good match. I mean, obviously, like I said, going in, you could say this is going to be the greatest wrestling show of the year, and it definitely is up there, right? It's definitely got a claim to that stake. But yeah, FTR, I think they're the best tag team in wrestling right now. Retain the ROH World Tag Team titles. A lot of people thought the Briscoes were going to win. A lot of the non-ROH guys won. I mean, at this point, Claudio is kind of like a WWE AEW guy. He won. Samoa Joe was in WWE for the past 5 years. Jay Lethal was in ROH for the past however many years. And Samoa Joe beat him. Former WWE TNA AEW guy beat the ROH guy. FTR, WWE, AEW guys beat the ROH Briscoes. It's interesting to see that Tony Khan's getting his guys in there and getting them, or his people in there, to become champions on there. Elsewhere, Mercedes Martinez retained her title against Serena Deeb. I love Serena Deeb so much. Oh my god, I love her. I think she's the best. So that's the weekly recap. Yeah, it took around like 22, 23 minutes. There we go. Keeping pace. I think that we're doing good right now. And I'm going to talk about a sensitive topic next, but the topic that I hope you're probably tuning in to see, and it's me talking about Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is a guy who crafted the world that we're watching and that I'm talking about right now. Wrestling as we know it right now was formed and crafted by WWE. I know there may be, wrestler AEW, AEW and Impact in it, but all these guys, all these wrestlers, everyone that you loved grew up watching, unless they were an outside guy and whatever. But, all these guys grew up watching WWE. And if they were an outside guy, they were brought in by Vince McMahon and under the WWE style. But Vince McMahon crafted this world for everyone to enjoy. And Vince McMahon is a flawed person. Vince McMahon has had allegations throughout the year, steroid trial, buying his competition isn't bad, but the sexual misconduct allegations, the hush money. There's been so many controversies about Vince McMahon over the years, which, I guess when you're a billionaire, it kind of comes with the territory, right? I am conflicted on how I feel about Vince McMahon, and I hope it's fine to say that, because on one hand, he did craft this world in professional wrestling, and as we know it, in WWE. WWE that we watch every week Vince completely changed the game. He bought out his competition, he bought out the territories, put them out of business, and changed it to his entertainment style. And, really brought it to the mainstream audiences. So for that, I respect it, because without Vince McMahon, I wouldn't be a wrestling fan. I know that for a fact. And I don't think you would either. So, as much as we can say that he has these sexual misconduct allegations, and they are, it's some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, I wonder if there's going to be more stuff that comes out that we haven't found out about yet, but I'll talk about that in a bit. So on one hand, you have these misconduct allegations. On the other hand, so it's kind of like separate the art from the artist. And I'm saying this now, it's Sunday, July 24th. He has, paid out hush money. And that is a big deal. But it's not there. From what I understand, there hasn't been any non-consensual encounters with Vince McMahon. Now, if that does change, this is a little bit different, obviously, right? But him retiring abruptly kind of makes me think that there is more than what's been revealed. I think it would be great if there was an illegitimate child. If Vince McMahon did have an illegitimate child, not named Hornswoggle, I think that would be interesting. If Vince fathered a child, that would be crazy, man. There's somebody has another claim to the McMahon fortune. But yeah, I wonder if something like really, because all of this came out we started hearing about this, and then Vince comes out on SmackDown what was that, a month or two ago, and says, hey, thank you, WWE Universe, and the reports are that Vince McMahon is here, he's not leaving, Vince is not going down, same thing, business as usual, Vince will go down when, Vince will die before he retires, again, like we all thought, right? But then he came on Twitter and announced his retirement. Everyone's like, what? So I'm wondering if there's more things that, because I'm sure every major news outlet has a team working on trying to dig up information about this. And if they're not doing it, they should, because there's probably a treasure trove of information just waiting to be dug up by one of these people. But Vince, he created a world for us to enjoy. He created, he brought us huge characters like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and John Cena and Randy Orton and Ric Flair and all of these guys. And if you were a star somewhere else, you became a bigger star with Vince McMahon, because Vince McMahon had the audience. Vince McMahon had the connections. He had the global brand. People don't, when I talk about, seriously, when I say that I'm a wrestling fan, people are kind of like, but when I say that I'm a WWE fan, they're like, oh, okay, I got you. Oh, like WWE, oh, okay, I got you. So, as much as, people want to say, we want to use wrestling, and we don't want the word wrestling to be eliminated. To the average person, they just know it as WWE. Just like, MMA. People don't say, hey, I'm an MMA fan. A lot of people say, hey, I'm a UFC fan, right? Even though there's probably 40 different MMA promotions. At least there's a billion MMA promotions. Just like there's a billion wrestling promotions out there. But Vince popularized it. Vince got celebrities involved. Even at WrestleMania 1, he had Liberace and Muhammad Ali there. And more recently, as I talked about earlier, Logan Paul and Bad Bunny wrestled at WrestleMania. I don't think that people should be... people definitely shouldn't discredit what he did for the business. I know Jerry Briscoe went on Twitter and went after people. But I think it's fine to say that, to respect Vince's accomplishments while also saying that he is a flawed person. And that's kind of my standpoint on it. I'm not the biggest fan of Vince McMahon. I'm not the biggest fan because I don't know Vince McMahon, right? So why would I be a fan of Vince McMahon? I don't know Vince McMahon. As far as the character of Mr. McMahon goes, yeah, it's one of the most iconic characters in professional wrestling, if not the biggest character in professional wrestling. If you want to look it up, Monday Night Raw has been a soap opera about the McMahons for the past 30 years, right? It's just crazy that Vince he's actually retired. Nobody thought really, I want to stress, nobody thought we'd see the day where Vince retired. But he's done. I mean, I'm sure he has his fingerprints all over it. I kind of compared it. It's like when Bob Boss goes to prison and he has somebody on the outside working for him. And I'm sure, he's in Bruce Pritchard's ear and Stephanie's ear and Triple H's ear and whoever else will listen to him and get some advice. Nick Khan, because Nick Khan and Stephanie are the co-CEOs and Triple H is in his position of executive vice president of talent relations that he wasn't before, that was retaken over by John Laurinaitis. I can't believe, dude, John Laurinaitis, like all of Vince's guys too are probably going to be gone too. Vince, Kevin Dunn, John Laurinaitis. I mean, crazy. Like we really don't know WWE without Kevin Dunn. So I wonder. That's another thing. I wonder if the programming will be drastically different. From a standpoint of language on the television, from a standpoint of production cuts, from promos, the in-ring wrestling, I'm so curious about that. Which wrestlers are pushed? Are there wrestlers that get a push that maybe they weren't getting pushed before? I don't know, but I don't think things will change too drastically. And to quote a guy named CM Punk, to paraphrase a guy named CM Punk, things will still be the same when the idiot son-in-law, or the idiot daughter and the doofus son-in-law take over, right? I mean, I don't think CM Punk is wrong. So I don't think we're going to see that many changes, but shout out to Vince. I mean, a lot of respect for what he's done to the wrestling company. I mean, I obviously wouldn't be sitting in a chair talking about wrestling if it wasn't for Vince McMahon. So my hat's off to him. Hope he enjoys retirement, and I hope there isn't anything like too crazy, more than what's already been reported on, at least, because that has been some crazy stuff. But I hope there isn't anything too crazy that gets released that hasn't already been released. But thanks for listening to the podcast, everyone. Audio version, video going up. Trying to kind of figure this out, and have a great day. But yeah, weekly recap, Vince McMahon thoughts, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. Cheers.